Hi lovelies, welcome to my channel. I'll be showing you how to make this cheeky madam looking keyhole dress. Now if you look at it carefully, you discover that there is ruffle on one sleeve and the other sleeve is taped with bias. So if you're interested in learning, watch to the end, subscribe and like. So the materials I use a Ankara print 2 yards, and then it's a light crepe fabric 4 yards. So the full length is 64. So that is why I need 4 yards, right? So what you do next is to get the length. Now we won't be slitting the shoulders, right? So the shoulders will be on foot. So we need now. There's no joining on this fabric. That's why I got 4 yards. Okay. So if you're very tall and your length is up to 60, be sure to get 4 yards. So you place your tape. You measure your tape lengthwise. Okay. So you get the full length. So the full length is 62. So that's the whole of the tape, right? So I measured my 62 inches, and after which I now folded it. So that will give me the full length of the dress. So because now we are not slitting the shoulders, so I'm folding the getting the back and the front together. Okay, we are not cutting this dress separately. We are cutting back and front together, right? So I'll fold the first one, and then I get the length for the back, and after which I fold again. Okay, so you see carefully the way I folded it. I got the length, and I fold the length. I got the length, and then I now folded to get the width. So you can see that one side has Ankara print, okay, Ankara ruffle. So that means that your shoulder, your both the folding won't be equal, so one will be longer than the other. So you need to subtract the part that will have Ankara, okay, from the length, from the shoulder measurement. Okay, so now I'm working with length 24. So the shoulder length is 24. So that means from the shoulder down will be 24. Okay, so I subtracted 4 inches from one of the folding. So the down part is 24, and then the upper one is 20. Okay, I also added my seam, that's my joining alarm, because we'll be taping the upper part, that's the when I mean upper, the part I folded, the one that you can see down on at the top. I added half inch, and then the longer one, the one that has Ankara print, the one that has bias taping, sorry, is the bottom one, where the one that has Ankara print is the one at the top. Okay, so I added half hemming allowance. So remember to add your hemming allowance. So what I did is just to subtract the Ankara print from the length, okay, from the shoulder measurement, and then I pinned my fabric down. It's very important, so you don't have it moving up and down. Okay, so now after measuring my 24, now I'll be using that 24, so the 24 that I subtracted 4 inches from, that is what you fold down. So what you get should be the same thing at the top, and then the down should be the same. So make sure you fold your fabric correctly. The top the same, all from the top to bottom, and then the down part the same from top to bottom. So this is me just measuring the 24 inches. So I'm using the 20 because I already subtracted the 4 inches, okay, from the short one. Okay, so and then that is what you need to do. You measure it down, so you are sure of what you are doing. As you are measuring, you also be measuring the shorter one. That's the one that will have the Ankara print, and be sure that is the same. Okay, you don't want some side longer than the other. After which you now use your ruler to connect a straight line. So this is what I'm using. So this even helps you save fabric, so you don't waste your fabric too much. So this is what I'm working with. I took away the other part, and then I know that now this is my short sleeve and this is my long sleeve. The short one is the one that will have the Ankara print, while the long one is the one that will have the bias taping. Remember, like I said, I added seam allowance to all the measurements. Okay, so now the next thing to do, you can see the shoulder is on fold. You are not slitting the shoulder will be on fold. So the next thing is to measure your shoulder to bust line. Now you're not using your accurate bust line now, because this dress does not have a zip. So you come down on your bust line. So the bust line I'm using for someone that is bust 38, I'm using 12 inches. Mostly it is either use 12 or 11 depending on the person's bust, but please don't use 9. It will be difficult to put on. Okay, and then the next thing is to measure my under bust and then my waist line. Okay, and then the next thing, from the waist I measured my hip. Waist to hip is 9. Okay, so I measured my hip allowance, my hip measurement, my hip line rather. Okay, so after doing that, I will now be imputing the measurement. So the measurement I added for the bust is 38. Okay, the bust is 38. I did it 43. So I added added like 5 inches to the bust measurement. Please don't so accurate measurement. You put yourself in trouble. Okay, so I added 5 inches to the bust, and then the waist I added 6 inches. The waist is 32, the waist is 34, and I added 5 inches, and I added 6 inches. I did 40 for the waistline. Now the reason why I did 40 for the waistline, because the keyhole will be between the waist and the under the bust. Okay, so that is why I did 40. Otherwise I would have done 5, so that it's not going to, I would have done 5 or 4, so it's not going to be too free, right? And then the hip is 44, and I did 50. Okay, so for the hip also I added like 6 inches allowance. So make sure you add enough allowance, okay, but make sure it's not to add it to the measurement. Don't add it on the fabric, okay? If not, if you're adding on the fabric, you'll be adding too much, okay? So add it to your measurement, then you divide by 4. All right, so my hip, the 50 divided by 4 will give me 12 and a half. Okay, that's the hip. So that 12 and a half, now I'll place the measurement on the hemline. Now I won't be doing 12 and a half, so that there will be ease of movement. So I will add 2 inches to that hip line, so I now have 14 and a half. So I will measure 14 and a half on the hemline, so there will be ease of movement. You can even add more, okay, so there won't be difficulty in moving. So after which, you now connect the straight line from the hem to the hip, and then from the hip you connect it to you connect it to your normal measurement. And that is all, guys, about the measurement. So the next thing is to impute to mark our neckline measurement. So because the neckline, now I'm doing the neck 4 by 5, so the depth is 5 and the width is 4. Remember, after marking the 4 by 5, I draw my seam allowance. Please make sure you add seam allowance, otherwise reduce the 4 by 5. After marking 4 by 5 and then you didn't add seam allowance, you decide to sew, your neck will be wider. So I added my seam allowance after marking the 4 by 5. Okay, so now the next thing now is to draw out my my keyhole. Okay, so the keyhole will be between the waist and the underbust. That's why I marked that's the excess of the underbust. So I came down from the underbust 1 inch, and I came up from the waistline 1 inch, right? So that it's going to be fine, right? If you decide to do the keyhole on the waist, it will be too low and it's not going to come out well. So it should be between the under the bust and between the waist, so it's going to be beautiful, right? So that is what you do. Now that's your under bust measure, that measurement. Okay, so you just come in ½ inch, just draw a semicircle, a circle, right? Or just try and make a circle there, all right? And then of half inch, after sewing it's still going to be wider, all right? So you're not adding inch allowance. So just make from that your measurement, just do that shape there, and then you pin it down. Okay, after pinning it, the essence of pinning it, so that when you are cutting it, it's not going to move. Okay, so make sure you're sure of what you're doing, right? And once you get the circle that you want to make, or oval, you can make it oval shape. It doesn't have to be circle, it can be an oval shape, right? And then you can now cut it. You pick the 4 together and then you cut. So after cutting, now you can see that the hole is very small. So what you need to do now is, now you can now use your scissors to now cut it a little bit. Make sure you don't cut it too wide, because after sewing it's going to be wider, right? Remember, there is no seam allowance, so that is why I actually made the waistline that much. Okay, that's how I let seam allowance, so that by the time I sew, we've cut into the waistline, and then we cut outside the waistline. So by the time you sew, you still be sewing into and outside, so that will it will still make the dress still fitted. Okay, so that is when you are sewing, you sew from your bust line and then you stop before the hole, and then that's after you finish sewing the keyhole. All right, so now I'll go ahead and cut. So you can see, I don't know if you can see this, the line is a bit faint. I'm cutting on the seam allowance, not on the 4 by 4. I added seam allowance after that 4 by 5, sorry. Okay, so that is all you need to do. The next thing, and I need to tell you that when you are making this type, please make sure you turn your fabric on the right side, because we are sewing on the right side. If you do it on the left side, on the wrong side, you will be frustrated, and you have to turn it, because you're not sewing on the wrong, you're sewing on the right. So please, it's very, very important, okay, to know that when you're especially when you're using fabric that has wrong and right side, right? At this point, if you know you've not subscribed to my channel, guys, please subscribe, like, and leave a comment. Okay, so if you're watching for Facebook, please follow us and like this video. You can also share. Okay, so I'm trying to mark my measurement again, so you don't need to even mark. So what I did is just to use the pin. You can see I placed the pin on the lines from the other side, so that is what I used. All I did was just to measure the down parts, my 14.5 on the hem. So I mark my 14.5 on it. This is the other side. You are marking both side of the fabric, so be sure to don't use a permanent marker, because this is the right side. Use a chalk that you can easily erase, or anything that can easily erase when you want to wipe it out, okay? Especially for fabrics that shows easily, like this black. It is very, very noticeable, okay? So once you draw your lines, and that is all for that. So the next thing is to sew. So you can see that now from what we've cut, you can see that one is longer than the other. Like I said, the longer one will have the bias taping, and the shorter one will have the Ankara print. So now the next thing to do is to cut the Ankara. Okay, so remember we used 4 inches for the Ankara. That's to complete the sleeve. One of our sleeve is shorter, so to complete it is 4 inches, and it's pleated. So I got, this is 2 yards of Ankara print, and then I'll add my folding allowance. We will fold the hem twice, that's 1 inch, and then plus the joining allowance. So I'm cutting for 5.5. So the actual measurement is 4 inches, and then plus 1.5 for folding and hemming, right? So that is what you cut. No, so you cut enough that will be enough for you to pleat. Okay, if you want the pleat very full, cut enough. So I folded it into 2, and then I cut it, and then after which I slash it just to get single piece. If you're cutting on fold, the fabric will be too heavy. It's already heavy, okay? So it's better not to cut on fold. Just cut one single piece and then iron. So be sure to use fabric that the back and the front won't be that obvious. You can hardly differentiate the back and the front, so that makes it easier for you. So that is why you should use original Ankara print, okay? So that is what you do, and then after which I'll fold the hem, and then before joining. So this is the bias taping for the neckline, and the sleeve, the other longer sleeve. So it's 2 inches, okay? And then this is the belt for the waistline. So that is it. Then the leftover fabric is the scarf. So if you need a scarf, then you go ahead and cut a scarf. So the next thing now is to sew the keyhole. Okay, that's very, very important. You can see I still opened my keyhole. Now it's no longer looking like a circle, it's looking like an oval shape. So this part is very dicey. So guys, what you need to do is to put your hand inside, okay? So you flip it inside, and then you turn it in a way that you'll be sewing on the wrong side. You can see I'm turning the right side facing each other, and then I'll pick the wrong side, and that is how I will sew it round. So that is just the simple logic about this. Is not difficult. All you need to do is just put your hand inside, bring out the wrong side, and then pick it, and then you can pin it and then sew. So when you're sewing, please don't sew on 1/2 inch, it will be too wide, but just sew enough. You can sew on 1/4 of an inch in a way that it's going to be able for you to you'll be able to notch, right? So we are going to notch the after sewing. So this part you don't need to rush. Please don't rush it, just take your time, sew it gradually, okay? And then you sew. Make sure the both are equal when you are sewing. That is why you should take it easy. You sew and then you bring it out. It's going to be kind of look like it's difficult, but it's not. So because you are sewing, this is not the regular way of sewing, okay? So you pick it, you keep bringing it out, and then you sew. You use your hand to turn it to bring the wrong part out, and then you sew. So that is what you do when you finish this part, and then you do the same thing to the other part, okay? So after sewing, you can see how it's looking. So the next thing is to notch. Please be careful to notch. You can see that mine is a bit open. I didn't hold that part very, so I'm going to hold it and then I will notch. Please, if you know your notching you're not sure of your notching, so you don't cut into the fabric, please leave it and then iron. Use hot iron, place fabric on it and iron it. Use steam iron, okay, to iron it, so it's going to lay very, very flat. So the next thing is to place your both shoulders together, okay? Hold it together so you differentiate. You'll be able to identify the back, the longer one and the shorter one, okay? So that will help you not to make mistake, right? So after which you just move down to the down part. So I'll be sewing the ruffle on the shorter one, so it's going to be equal with the longer sleeve, okay? So if you decide to make both sleeve equal, and then you decide to add ankara ruffle, one sleeve will be longer than the other and it's not going to be fine, right? Okay, so that is why you should follow through with what I just showed you. Okay, so make sure you place them together. You can, what you can do, you can hem the bottom first. After hemming the bottom of the dress, then you can also hem the bottom of the ankara and then join them together and start sewing. So that was what I did. I hemmed the ankara bottom separately and I hemmed the fabric separately. Okay, and then you can now go ahead and start pleating. Make sure you are pleating in a way that the wrong side is going to be inside, right? It's not going to be facing outside. If you make the mistake, you lose it and you start all over again. So just be careful and go ahead and sew. Make your tiny pleat. If the pleat is too full, your fabric will be heavy. So this dress is already heavy on its own, so you don't need to make the pleat tiny. So just give a little bit of space. You can measure like 2 inches in between, or 1 inches in between each pleat. Okay, in between each pleat. Okay, so that's just to make your pleats beautiful. Okay, so go ahead and sew, and then after sewing you check and be sure that what you've done is right, and then the next thing is to sew the other part. You can see that I'm looking at it carefully, and then I'm just to be sure that everything is okay. So that is what you should do, so you don't stress yourself unnecessarily. So the next thing is to, now you can see that both are almost the same. Okay, so the next thing now is to now tape use your bias, ankara bias, to tape the fabric. Okay, the longer hand. All right, so we'll be taping it in a way that it's going to be on both sides, the back and the front, is going to be a bit obvious. Okay, so the best thing to do is to start from the bottom. Like I said, you can see I folded the ankara into the ankara is excess, so I folded it into the black fabric, so that by the time I'm folding it again, it's going to come out neatly. So it shouldn't be straight like the longer one. So this one is bias taping. Okay, so you can rewind this part and then see what I did, and then go ahead and sew it straight. After sewing it straight, so if your ankara is not as long to go around, you join it. And when you are joining, make sure you join it in a way that by the time the wrong side won't be outside, it won't be facing you. Okay, especially for fabrics that you can't identify the back and front. So but do well to mark the back and front so you'll be able to join it correctly. Okay, so after sewing it straight from top to bottom, sewing it from one end, is going to end from the bottom of one end to side. You can see this is how I'm folding it. Okay, so after sewing, you fold it this way, so you need to be very neat. So just go ahead and sew. Okay, then after sewing, you iron. Please take your time to iron it. Don't say it doesn't matter. So the pleats, iron this bias parts. It's very important you iron, so it's going to lay very flat and it's going to be beautiful. All right, so this is me just sewing. So this is you can see how easy and straightforward it is. So the thing is to sew the neckline, but before then you can see I've measured both. You can see now both sleeve are now equal. Okay, so none is longer than the other. We just have one that by the other pleated. Okay, so that is why you should follow the method I use in cutting it, so you don't have longer hand, one longer than the other. So the next thing is to sew the neckline. So we are also using that at 2 inches bias strip. Okay, but before you sew the neckline, you can decide to is better you shape the sides. Okay, so the side you can even shape. It's even important you shape side before sewing because I pinned it, and that is why it didn't give me any issue. But if you don't pin it, your pin doesn't stay well, please sew the side first before sewing the ruffles and the bias tape, so it doesn't everything doesn't ruffle up. Okay, so it's very important. You can see, if you can see the line is very faint, but follow the lines will mark from top, and then you sew it down to bottom. Make sure the hem is equal, right? So after sewing this side, you do the same thing to the other side. That is why we marked on both sides of the fabric. Okay, so this is the other side of the so I'm sewing. You sew before the keyhole, and then after the keyhole you continue, you sew down. So after which, the next thing now is to sew your neckline. Okay, so the neckline also, you'll be sewing the bias towards the center, that's the outer part. Okay, so the bias is going to come out, they'll be seeing it on the neckline. No, you're not folding it inside, so you sew from inside outward. Okay, so the next thing is to sew your belt. Okay, so the belt just makes it look more beautiful. Okay, so you can sew your belt, and then after which you turn it and then iron it. You cut out the edge. Okay, the part you can see the way I'm covering it, that part I'm covering, I'll cut out the excess there, and then I'll turn it, and then I'll iron. Please do well to iron. Okay, so this is it, guys. So if you want to wear this dress, if you want the ruffle to be on the right or on the left, just turn it whichever way. Back and front are the same. There's no back, there's no front. You can choose anywhere as your back and your front depending on where you want the ruffle. Thank you.